readings of the day. So now let's see Shelley's Ozymandias. Let's see the autobiography, Percy Bysshe Shelley. He was born on 4th August 1792, Horsham, Sussex, and died in 8th July 1822. Right? Occupation: poet, dramatist, essayist, and novelist. Known for his lyrical and long-form verse, Shelley is one of the most highly regarded English romantic poets of the 19th century. His works include The Mask of Anarchy and Queen Mab. So born in Broadbridge Heath, England on August 4th, 1792, Shelley is one of the epic poets of the 19th century and is best known for his classic anthology verse works such as Ode to the West Wind and The Mask of Anarchy. He is also well known for his long form poetry, including The Queen Mab and Alastor. He went on many adventures with his second wife, Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein. He drowned in a sudden storm while sailing in Italy in 1822. We can see the childhood of Shelley. Shelley, a controversial English writer of great personal conviction, was born on August 4, 1792, grew up in the country in the village Broadbridge Heath, just outside of West Sussex. He learned to fish and hunt in the meadows surrounding his home, often surveying the rivers and fields with his cousin and good friend Thomas Medwin. His parents were Timothy Shelley, Esquire and Member of Parliament, and Elizabeth Pelford. As the oldest of their 7 children, Shelley left home at the age of 10 to study at Sion House Academy, roughly 15 miles north of Broadbridge Heath and 10 miles west of central London. After 2 years, he enrolled at Eton College. While there, he was severely bullied, both physical and mentally, by his classmates. Shelley retreated into his imagination. Within a year's time, he had published 2 novels and 2 volumes of poetry, including Saint Irene and posthumous fragments of Margaret Nicholson. So we can see the life in Italy. Shortly after the publication of The Revolt of Islam, Shelley, Mary, and Claire left for Italy. Lord Byron was living in Venice, and Claire was on a mission to bring their daughter Allegra to visit with him. For the next several years, Shelley and Mary moved from city to city. While in Rome, their first-born son, William, died of a fever. A year later, their baby daughter, Clara Evrina, died as well. Around this time, Shelley wrote Prometheus Unbound. During their residency in Livorno in 1819, he wrote The Cenci and The Mask of Anarchy and Men of England, a response to the Peterloo massacre in England. Depth and significance. On July 8, 1822, just shy of turning 30, Shelley drowned while sailing his schooner back from Livorno to Lerisi after having met with Leigh Hunt to discuss their newly printed journal, The Liberal. Despite conflicting evidence, most papers reported Shelley's death as an accident. However, based on the scene that was discovered on the boat death, others speculated that he might have been murdered by an enemy who detested his political beliefs. Shelley's body was cremated on the beach in Viareggio, where his body had washed ashore. Mary Shelley, as was the custom for women during the time, did not attend her husband's funeral. Shelley's ashes were interred in the Protestant cemetery in Rome. More than a century later, he was memorialized in Poets' Corner in Westminster Abbey. So the poem was Ozymandias. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions dread which yet survive stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, aim mighty and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. You can see the picture showing, two vast and trunkless legs of stone, and then you can see the image of, head alone on the sand. Let's see the summary of the poem. The speaker here describes a meeting with someone who has traveled to a place where ancient civilizations once existed. From the description, we come to know that it was uh, Egypt, right? We know from the title that he is talking about Egypt. The traveler told the speaker a story about an old fragmented statue in the middle of the desert. The statue is broken apart, but you can still make out the face of a person. The face looks stern and powerful, like a ruler. The sculptor did a good job at expressing the ruler's personality. The ruler was a wrecked guy, but he took care of his people. On the pedestal near the face, the traveler reads an inscription in which the ruler, Ozymandias, tells anyone who might happen to pass by, basically, look around and see how awesome I am. But there is no other evidence of his awesomeness in the vicinity of his giant broken statue. So there is just a lot of sand, and far as the eye can see, the traveler ends his story. So from the lines 1 and 2, I met a traveler from an antique land who said, the poem begins immediately with an encounter between the speaker and the traveler that comes from an antique land. We are not sure about this traveler. He could be a native of this antique land or just a tourist returning from his latest trip. We don't know where this encounter is taking place. Is it on the highway, on a road somewhere in London? Maybe if we keep reading, we will find out. Antique means something really old, like the couch at your grandmother's or the bunny ears on top of your television. The traveler could be coming from a place that is ancient, almost as if he were time traveling. Or he could just be coming from a place that he has an older history, like Greece, Rome, or ancient Egypt. So from the line, from the lines, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies. Here the traveler begins his speech. He tells the speaker about a pair of stone legs that are somehow still standing in the middle of the desert. Those legs are huge, vast, and trunkless. Trunkless means without a torso. So it's a pair of legs with no body. Visage means face. A face implies a head. So we are being told that the head belonging to this sculpture is partially buried in the sand near the legs. It is also like the whole statue shattered. The image described is very strange. A pair of legs with a head nearby. What happened to the rest of the statue? War? Natural disaster? A Napoleon? So whose frown and wrinkle the lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read. The traveler now gives a fuller description of the shattered visage lying in the sand. As it turns out, the visage or face isn't completely shattered because one can still see a frown, a wrinkled lip, and sneer. We still don't know whom the statue represents, but we do know that he was upset about something because he is frowning and sneering. Maybe he thinks that the sneering makes him look powerful. It conveys the cold command of an absolute ruler. He can do what he wants without thinking of other people. He probably commanded the sculptor to make the statue. So, after briefly describing the visage, the lines shift our attention away from the statue to the guy who made the statue, means the sculptor. Read here means understood or copied. Copied well with the sculptor was pretty good because he was able to understand the reproduce exactly to read the facial features and passions of our angry man. The lines 7 and 8, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. The poem now tells us more about the passions of the face depicted on the statue. Weirdly, the passions still survive because they are stamped on these lifeless things. The lifeless things are the fragments of the statue in the desert. Stamped doesn't refer to an ink stamp, but rather to the artistic process by which the sculptor inscribed the frown and sneer on his statue's face. The word could also make you think of the ruler's power. Had he wanted to, he could have stamped out and of the subjects who offended him. Mocked has two meanings in this passage. It means both made fun of and copied or imitated, and is a stand in for the sculptor. So the sculptor both belittled and copied this man's passions. The heart that fed is a tricky phrase. It refers to the heart that fed or nourished the passions of the man that the statue represents. But if you think these lines are unclear, you are right. Even scholars have trouble figuring out what they mean. Right? Note the contrast between life and death. The fragments of the statue are called lifeless things. The sculptor is dead, and so is the statue's subject. The passion, though, still survive. So, what is the message convey through this poem? The moral of the poem, Ozymandias, is that pride and arrogance can lead to destruction. Ozymandias was obviously a very proud and arrogant man. He was vain enough to imagine that he was the most powerful ruler on earth, and he wanted everyone to be terrified of him. He was always scowling and frowning in order to scare everyone around him. It is this angry, frowning face which the ancient sculpture has faithfully recorded for posterity in his statue. All the great ruler tried to perpetuate their memories by building mammoth statues. Their pride and arrogance knows no boundaries as they erect these huge statues and vainly inscribe bombastic claims about the superiority of the kingdoms which they rule. They are all subject to the laws of time. Ozymandias was so powerful in his days, but now his statues have fallen. No one knows his name. What was once his empire is now a backwater, an antique land. Everything that he worked for and accomplished has forgotten. His efforts were pointless. The poem is implying that whole human life is like that. The theme is that human beings and materialistic values are seasonal and are bound to an end. So from this, we come to know that he clearly depicts, the sculpture's lifelong art and the Ozymandias, the ruler, once a powerful ruler who time destroyed his pride. Thank you.